And I believe we are live. Yes, indeed we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Muptown Funk. I'm very excited because, as you can tell, today we're doing a live stream. I did one live stream on this channel back in, I want to say it was early September. And I'm very excited to be back with another one here. I've been wanting to do a Q&A on this channel for quite a while, and what better way to do it than as a live stream? I run another channel, which I tend to bring up a lot here on this channel, and over on that channel, I have struggled for years with trying to get a Q&A down right. For whatever reason, I can just never work out how to do a Q&A video well, so I decided if I want a Q&A here, and I want any chance of it coming out, I'm just going to make it a live stream. And I'd like to apologize in advance for just how short notice this announcement was. I definitely meant to announce it earlier than 20 minutes beforehand. But, hopefully we still have a good old time. Welcome, everyone. Seeing a lot of familiar faces from a different channel. Almost like I told my other channel, which is larger, that I was having a live stream over here. Hey guys, thank you for showing support to Muptown Funk, who's definitely a different person than that other guy. Guy's not here. That's Muptown Funk. Right? Yeah. See, different guy. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Welcome everyone. Well, we're doing pretty well for just starting out. I uh, I was gonna do a video on Kermit being announced for Disney Speedstorm, a racing game that I don't play. It's like some live service Disney racing game, and they just announced Kermit's coming to it, uh, which I was gonna do a video on, and it was like, you know what? What is there to say? I don't even play the game. I've been trying to do some more news videos lately, which you might have noticed if you saw my video on the Diamond Select Sweetums that was announced a few days back. Just because making videos for this channel takes a very long time, and I want to be able to have content out more frequently. Yeah, this is a legitimate, actual Sesame Street Lego set. There's just one that's been made. Um, it was a Lego Idea set. Lego Ideas is a program Lego does where users can submit their own set concepts, and this won and became an actual legit set back in 2020. It's genuinely one of my favorite Lego sets of all time. Honestly, it's such a beautifully well done um, such a beautifully well done set. The thing I always found as funny was it was released as part of Lego's 18 plus line, which all Lego Idea sets now are actually. It's just funny to see a Sesame Street product that says 18 and up on the box. But it's a was Luigi in there? Yes, yeah, I did. I did show this on my main channel. Nice plant, thank you. There, it's my sister's plant actually. This is I use her room to stream sometimes. Surprise Legos it doesn't have hoopers. It does. This is actually hoopers. It's hard to see on camera, but this is like 1/4 of hoopers. You can't actually see the hoopers sign unless I go off here. There we go. But it's very much based on the modern layout of Sesame Street, where Cookie Monster's apartment is directly under Hooper's. As you can see, it's quite dusty over here. But he's got some cookies there. He's got Guy Smiley on the TV and a framed picture of the Count. It's really funny. It's very cool how this set references a lot of characters that didn't make it in. But it's so strange for Cookie Monster to have a framed photo of the Count. He's also got a bat up here. But yeah, so this is Hooper's. And what I always found interesting was they put 2 peg holes here so you could potentially connect it to another set. So I'm hoping they'll do another set at some point soon with the other half of Hooper's store and maybe, I guess, the Fix-It shop? Maybe? Or I guess now it would be the bike shop in that place, right? I think the bike shop's in, right? Because for a while it was the laundromat, right? I didn't know Cookie Lives with Hoopers one was that established. I think that was established in the first season after HBO. Um, After HBO bought them, I want to say. I believe that was the case. It's whenever was that like I think season 46. That's when they moved Oscar to a different part of the set as well. Let's move this Lego set over a little so we can see things better. When they restructured and put Elmo in Gordon and Susan's apartment and all that stuff, which again is what this set is based on. Actually, wait, does the Count turn into a bat? There's a really great Muppet wiki page called "Is the Count Actually a Vampire?" And I've wanted to do a whole video on it because it has some really funny things on there, like parent complaints from the 70s about the Count being a monster and we can't have children can't trust him. Um, but in 2019, some Sesame Street characters were interviewed by Marvel at I think it was San Diego Comic Con when they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of Sesame Street, and the interviewer asks Grover and the Count how they maneuver the crowds, and the Count says he turns into a bat. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to get a few more sets before we could reach around the corner, I think. The Count's a monster. Meanwhile, Cookie Monster is sitting there like, yeah, exactly. Literally, all of the characters are called monsters. Elmo's a monster. Grover's a monster. They're all monsters. But the Count's the problem. Because he looks like an actual guy. I guess that's the problem. Not to ask a grim question early on, but did you know about Big Bird almost landing up on the Challenger space shuttle? Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting story. I know there's a pretty popular YouTube video about it. I think it's from Alternate History Hub, I want to say. I haven't seen it, but yeah, because I believe they wanted an educator on there, right? And Big Bird, Carol Spinney as Big Bird was considered. One, two, three, four, five parent complaints. Yeah, see, I need to find that page again. It's insane. I won't read it out now, but because I don't want to spoil it. Because again, I have a full video I want to do on it eventually. I think that would be so funny. Remember, the Count stands out as the only traditional monster, which is made worse due to him having the ability to hypnotize people once upon a time. Exactly. Yeah. Those early Count appearances, I know I talked about one in the Waiter Grover video. Those early Count appearances where he straight up hypnotizes Grover and Bert in his first ever appearance. Yeah. I think the complaint was that, well, the Count is practically human. But it is funny to read that complaint letter because it's phrased like the mother that wrote it fully believes Dracula is real and is coming for her. So, I mean, that's just what I find kind of funny about it. Are the international Big Birds real? Yeah, Sesame Street has several international co-productions, um, which are allowed to use their own characters, and one of those is, a lot of them have their own Big Birds. Hope Grover keeps a picture of the Count in his apartment so he can always remember the man who hypnotized him. Yeah, see, the Count picture in Cookie Monster's apartment, I find so funny. Like, those two don't seem like they'd hang out. Other than that one sketch where they're, like, counting cookies. You know what, that one used to terrify me as a kid. It starts off with, like, this pink screen with, like, a ball floating around it, and it just zooms in on the Count. It's the old Count design, and that absolutely terrified me. I want to do a whole video on, like, and I know other people have, but I want to do a whole video on, like, just things from Sesame Street that creeped me out as a kid. Because to me, early Sesame Street can be so unsettling, and I think that's due in part to the fact that it was, early children's television. And it's definitely something I'm not alone on, if you know about the infamous sketches like the Crack Monster, etc. But like Wanda the Witch, from the first ever episode, that totally freaked me out as a kid. Okay, she like loses her hair at the end. She was actually wearing a wig because that starts with W. And then like all the witches go around a cauldron and start cackling, and it's all drawn in like very early line work. You know what I think it was? It wasn't Sesame Street segments that scared me. The video idea was censored Sesame Street. And that's something I really want to do. That's something I really, really want to work on. There are there are a lot of there's a crack monster. He was like made out of cracks in the wall. I know what you're thinking, it's not that. The Count's a vampire, Elmo and Cookie are monsters. What are Bert and Ernie? Zombies? Crazy Harry terrified me as a kid. I love the Count, but Crazy Harry scared the crap out of me. Did he scare you? Is there enough to do a deep dive on him? I, I put up a post around Halloween last year asking, like, hey, what Muppets scared you as a kid? And I think I got several people saying Crazy Harry. There's definitely enough on him to do a video. I'm not sure if he's not really one of the characters I'm that interested in covering right now. But the interesting thing is, I remember him being kind of a mascot for the 2011 movie. He was in a lot of ads, like blowing up the logo. And he's one of those characters that exists in this really interesting place between like secondary and like tertiary. He's kind of in the same realm as New Zealand, I think, in terms of like strange prominence. Like I think everybody knows Crazy Harry. Crazy Harry's my guy. What do you mean? Should do a video on Snuffleup because he scared me as a kid. Yeah, early Snuffy is awful with like those big yellow eyes and stuff. But yeah, Crazy Harry's original name was Crazy Donald, and that just so doesn't have the same ring to it. I think his first appearance was the Muppet Valentine Day sketch, a special. See, the thing is, the problem is, with a lot of the Muppet Show characters, what makes it kind of disinteresting for me covering them is how similar a lot of their stories are. I can only find interest in talking about the two Muppet Show pilots so many times. Um, yeah. Why don't you do your Muptown Funk videos on your other Cars channel? Um, why don't I do it on my Cars channel? Because it's not Cars related. Or do you mean Tie 2? Because I do have a second Cars channel that I don't use. Which is a good question, but the thing is, I wanted to start this channel from scratch because if I did it from my dead second channel, there would still be people subscribed to it, and I didn't want... You mean the first one, okay. Yeah, because it's not Cars related, it's not the same audience, and I don't want to divide an audience like that. It just... With a YouTube channel, you typically, I think it's just better off to split it up, you know? It would be one thing if I were covering, like, pop culture stuff in general, you know? You'll see a lot of channels out there that'll cover, like, DC and Marvel and Star Wars, because those are very similar audiences. For me, I'm working with two channels with with very different audiences. Even if there is, of course, some inevitable crossover. What about covering the Muppet houses? I don't remember the name of their skits. I think the Muppet, like the character encyclopedia, just lists them as talking houses. They didn't appear after season 1. Alright, so somebody asked, what character do you plan on covering next? And then, what characters do you not plan on covering? So I'll start off with characters I don't plan on covering. And honestly, I don't really know. I feel like for me, nothing is off the table. Right now, I get a lot of requests for full body characters, and I don't really have much interest in doing another video on full body characters soon. I've done Thog and Timmy Monster, and I don't really have much interest in doing another full body character right now. I'm sure I will eventually, but like I said a few minutes ago, a lot of characters have pretty similar stories. Favorite episode of the Muppets Mayhem? I feel like that show is so underrated. I genuinely thought it's genuinely one of my favorite Muppet projects in quite a while. The Minecraft one is insane. The fact that there's an episode of a Muppet show where a bunch of singers' fan bases attack them and then they make it up to them by playing Minecraft is insane. That's definitely up there. That's definitely one of the best ones. I think that show came out around a year ago now, which is crazy. So what Muppet or Sesame Street character do you plan on doing next? I've gotten a lot of requests, and I've gotten a lot of requests for characters that are going to be very large endeavors. Perhaps in hindsight, I shouldn't have started with Cookie Monster, a character with a very long history. But I've gotten a lot of requests for very, very significant characters. A lot of a lot of very significant characters. I've had several people ask about Guy Smiley, which is not a bad decision. Not bad at all. But the character I'm currently planning on doing next is going to be Telly Monster. I don't think I've heard any desire for Telly, but I think Telly is a very interesting character in the fact that he started off as this insane character concept of being obsessed with TVs and then somehow warped into just like this big worrier. And he was so prominent in the show throughout the 90s. Every once in a while, when I just need something to watch in the background while I'm doing other stuff, I'll just watch old 90s Sesame Street street scenes. And Telly is in nearly every one. And then nowadays, he's like in maybe one episode a season. I think Telly's probably my next case. There's also an amazing episode where Telly punches a penguin in the face and then goes to jail. It's in a dream sequence, but it's one of my favorite Sesame Street things ever. And I think I'm going to make that its own video, which will probably be my next video, unless some sort of major news comes out that I have to report on, but I doubt that'll happen. I'm planning on doing a series where I highlight specific episodes, and I really want to. I'm going to start by doing a video on when Telly beat up a penguin. That should hopefully be coming out pretty soon. And then, soon after that, I got to do work on the actual Telly video. I would have the Telly beats up a penguin episode be featured in the Telly deep dive, but that's going to take too long. I have too much to say about it. It's amazing. I have an idea for a Sesame Street video. Going back and looking at every Sesame Street segment where Frank Oz occasionally came back. Yeah, when I was doing the Grover, the Waiter Grover video, I realized just how many times he came back. He was back in the coffee plant sketch, and then when I was doing the Cookie Monster deep dive, I realized he was back for the first time he eat Cookie. I'm not sure really what there is to say about them. Maybe if there was like a unifying theme within all the sketches, I would be more interested in covering it, but it is really cool to see he would come back. You should have covered Rocco back when he took over the internet. Originally, I had a Rocco video planned for April Fool's Day, and I wasn't able to get it done in time. I wasn't even able to start work on it. But I did plan on doing a Rocco episode at one point. Rocco's not off the table, I guess. You see Kermit was just added to Disney Speedstorm. Yeah, I just put up a community post about it just a few minutes before starting the stream. I consider doing like a news video on it, but I don't play that game, so I don't really have much to say about it. It seems like he has some original dialogue and some new audio, which is nice. I kind of lost interest when I learned it was going to be live service. And I also kind of lost interest when I learned that they were doing a Disney racing game without Cars characters in it. That seems like a missed opportunity to me. I haven't really heard many people talk about it. I don't know. I don't know. Thoughts on the upcoming Jim Henson documentary? I'm genuinely very excited for it. It looks like it's going to be such a definitive history of his life and his work, and it's being done by Ron Howard, who's amazing. So, I think that's a perfect choice, and I think he'll do a very respectful job. I my only wish is that they could air it in theaters, even if it's just a select theater thing. But it's just going to be a Disney Plus special. Do you think the Muppet store at Disney Hollywood Studios will ever reopen? It's closed? How long has it been closed for? Man, I haven't been to Disney World since 2018. How long is it? I think I may have heard about it being closed. That's upsetting. I love that store. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought when the Jim Henson documentary trailer came out. I was like, are you gonna outdo the Defunct Land documentary? Can professional beloved director of 50 years Ron Howard beat Defunct Land's YouTube documentary? I don't know. We'll have to see. I was very impressed by the Disney Plus Imagineering documentary, which came out a few years ago. It was a series. It was narrated by Angela Bassett, and it was genuinely very good. I was really happy with them. Not, I was like, okay, this is a Disney documentary. I feel like it's gonna like glorify everything, but they didn't. They had a whole segment about how Michael Eisner screwed everyone over, and then they interview Michael Eisner now, and he's like, yeah, I made a couple mistakes. Oops. Muppet stores only ever open every so often. It's not a store they open every day. It's hard to catch it open. Oh, I gotta look into that when it. I was okay. They have a little bit of Muppet merchandise in the store outside of Launch Bay, though. Okay. The Muppet franchise is doing so little right now. I guess they thought it would be a smart idea to not have the full store open. That's unfortunate. Try not to talk about the current state of the Muppets on this channel. It's pretty upsetting, but we do this channel to honor the history and hope for lots more in the future, right? Now, if Disney would give a Muppet Show a second season, those cowards. I actually have never seen Elmo in Grouchland. I saw Follow That Bird once as a kid. Never seen Elmo in Grouchland. A good friend of mine has. There's been a there's been a Sesame Street movie stuck in development for like 10, 15 years now, with with Anne Hathaway set to lead. Love Anne Hathaway, she's great. But apparently it's still happening. I think she said just last year she still wants to do it. But the only problem is the plot sounds very generic. It sounds like a very generic kids movie. Let's see if I could. Yeah, according to the Muppet Wiki, at least 2012. Have you ever been to Disney Paris? No, I haven't. I'd love to go one day. One that I want to be able to go to every Disney park at some point in my life. You might say that's a little pointless, but I have two down and what, four to go? I've been to both in the US several times. So, according to, let's see. Yeah, so listen to the plot according to Deadline in 2019. Big Bird and his Sesame Street friends are mysteriously expelled from their neighborhood, finding themselves in Manhattan. They team up with a plucky history show host who's on a quest to save her show and prove that Sesame Street actually exists, with obstacles created by the evil mayor with reasons of his own for keeping Sesame Street hidden from the world. That just sounds like the Smurfs movie. That sounds like the 2011 Smurfs movie to me. But, and then there was a weird update in 2020 where Chance the Rapper wanted in, and he wanted to play the evil mayor's aide. And the other thing is, producing the film is Sean Levy. And that name may sound familiar to you because Sean Levy is the director of Deadpool and Wolverine, coming out in a few months. And he did Free Guy. He does a lot of work with Ryan Reynolds. And he's been attached to, I believe, produce the Sesame Street movie since 2012. And he actually mentioned it while promoting Free Guy back in 2021, saying that Warner Brothers was now potentially considering making it an HBO Max, just Max special, instead of a full-fledged movie. But then, of course, the disastrous Warner Brothers merge happened after that, and I don't know what's going on. Its fate's probably very in the air right now. But now that the Deadpool and Wolverine press tour started, you may want to pay attention in case somebody asks Sean Levy. I think the last thing Sean Levy's going to be asked while promoting a Deadpool movie is, hey, what about the Sesame Street movie? But, maybe someone will ask it hoping that Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman says something funny in response. Sorry, Sesame Street now a magical land like Sodor was in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Ugh. Yeah, that's my concern. You don't want them to answer how do you get to Sesame Street. It's a cute plot for a movie. It really is in concept. It just sounds so derivative of every kids movie from 10 years ago, It sounds no different than the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, except at the very least there'll be puppets and not really ugly CGI. Sesame Street the Road Chip when? Have you ever been to Sesame Place? No, I haven't. I'd like to do a video on it, though. Have you guys ever seen? They used to have this wave pool with a giant image of Ernie, looming over it, and something about that's really funny to me. What's one thing Sesame Street's gotten rid of that you would like to see return the most? Easily, segments, recurring segments. Even when I was a kid, I stopped watching Sesame Street a few years after they phased out the old style and introduced Murray, who is not. I don't like Murray. Don't ask me about him. I just miss regular old Sesame Street segments, and there are still a few that they do every episode, but just the classic Ernie and Bert sketches, etc., etc. And I really commend the team for, despite not having that anymore, and I understand a lot of research went into making those changes, so much research is done making Sesame Street, so much research as to what kids are consuming and how and all of that, and how to properly treat everything. But I really do commend them for taking characters that would typically only be in sketches back in the day, like Mr. Johnson or Bert and Ernie, and prominently featuring them in street scenes now to make sure you're not deprived of those characters, because for a good few years you would definitely be. When I was a kid, I would like to say that when I stopped watching Sesame Street around from 2009 to 2011, that's probably my least favorite era in the show's history. It's definitely better now in terms of character variety, and as someone like me who was always obsessed with all the different characters since I was a kid, seeing just the lack of them back then was really disappointing, and now I do think it's better. Not much better, but it is better. I hear Biff was in an episode a few weeks back. That's cool. I don't know. I feel like after I read, like, I never liked Murray just because of how much the show changed with him. And after reading, like, the story behind him, I think I like him less. Joey Mazzarino, who was his performer, had, like, well, was also on the Sesame Street writer staff and was like, I think Sesame Street needs a host. I'll write his segments and play him. And it's like, okay, buddy. He left the show in 2015, and with that, Murray was completely phased out, which is really shocking to me. It's not often a puppeteer leaves and the character is completely phased out. Murray was subsequently like scrubbed from the credits. He was removed from the credits a few years later. It's like you guys trying to cover up his existence. It's strange that they couldn't find a role for him. It's strange they maybe could have made him a reporter now that you can't use Kermit on Sesame Street anymore, or something else like that. There are things you could have done with Murray, even coming from me, somebody who just said he doesn't like the character. There was more that you could have done there. Operation Murray Monster Erasure. Yeah, just the yeah, it's kind of strange to see. It's, in my opinion, very unlike Sesame Street to just be like, to scrub a character out of existence who didn't have any problem. I mean, if you think about a crew member playing a character is actually more common than you think. Yeah, definitely. Remember when Oscar and Darth Vader were using one of the Night at the Museum movies? Yeah, I've never seen it, but I know that's a thing in it. Is that the one where Owen Wilson plays the cowboy? I know he's in one of them. Last I heard, Murray's puppet is now being used in an international Sesame Street co-production. They just straight up got rid of him. And again, I find it so strange. Typically, if somebody leaves, they, You could have made him a vlogger. That's one way to bring it into the modern day. Showing his friends and audience members various sites around the world. It could have, yeah, it could have been a recurring sketch, and it could have been something like Global Grover with Murray. That certainly would have worked. I think the concept of him being a roaming reporter would have certainly worked well. And while I'm typically against things like putting a vlogger in your children's show, I think it certainly would have worked, having it be in that sort of style. That's something kids nowadays, whether we like it or not, are used to and can resonate with. A vlogger. As long as Jake Paul doesn't come to Sesame Street, I'm good. Can we have Big Bird Box Jake Paul, please? Could you imagine reading like the list of guest stars from next Sesame Street season, and Jake Paul is on there, doing a sketch called Bees for Boxing? Or Logan Paul doing a sketch called D is for Dead Body. Make the proposed sketches like Traveling Matt, but without the cluelessness about human culture. Exactly. Especially now in an era where one of Sesame Street's main MOs for the last few seasons has been about learning about cultures of the world. Murray could have worked in that regard, definitely. 1, 2 terrible siblings. Great, there we go. Although Murray is still at Sesame Place, so kids who go there see him and have no clue who he is. Bro, have you seen Big Bird? Dude would absolutely body slam Jake Paul in like 2 seconds. Big Bird's hyped up on some birdseed milkshakes. Yeah, he would wreck Jake Paul. You read the Muppet Kaboom comics. I have like an omnibus, like a whole collection they released for for one of them. I'll be honest, I never really liked the art style. I like the art style of the Snow White ones and the other adaptations. I haven't read those. But I've read, like, the Muppet, I've read the Muppet Show comic book, and I never liked the art style, but in more recent years I've come to appreciate it. When I was younger and reading them, I was like, why don't they look like the puppets? And I kind of respect the fact that they chose to make them look just more like characters and kind of remove the more puppety aspects of the design. Although I do prefer things like the Muppet Snow White or Family Reunion, which brings adult Skeeter into the fray. And I like when they had the comics have more accurate to the character art styles. You watched the Entertain the Elk video essay the day Sesame Street died. I haven't. I've seen it in my recommended, but I've got to check it out definitely. Hearing that that's what it's about, I think is very interesting. I think I'm surprised Sesame Street hasn't done his ventriloquists. I think there's just the long-standing running joke that the Muppets don't like performing with puppets. But I mean, they had Lamb Chop on there. They The Muppet Show had ventriloquists at least once. I know Muppets Tonight did too. Maybe they just think ventriloquist dummies are too scary. A lot of people are freaked out by them. I've never done like shadow puppets or finger puppets. I'm sure some segments probably have, but no. Not in that capacity. I don't know, I've just been interested in the Muppets since I was very young. I think I got it from my parents. It's one of those things where it's been with me for so long I can't even fully remember. Yeah, I've done ventriloquism on the Muppet Show prominently. Henson loved puppetry in all forms. Yeah. Would be cool to see them experiment with something. That's something interesting that the Muppets don't tackle. They do have several types of puppets, but things like shadow puppets or ventriloquist dummies or finger puppets aren't really a thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is 20 years of Disney owning them now. Wow. You see, I don't remember when Disney bought them out because I was born in 2004. So my whole life has been Disney owned Muppets. But it's a fascinating story of the Henson Company, the Henson family, sorry, not wanting to fold and not wanting to fold, and then they sold it to some international company and then just backed out and were like, you know what, Disney, you guys could take them. Perhaps it's just because it's what was going on when I was younger, but the Disney era is so fascinating to me. I feel like I talk about it too much on this channel, but to me, the like 2011 to 2016 is such a fascinating Muppet era. It's definitely my favorite point in time to talk about because I just think it's so interesting seeing how kind of soft rebooting the characters and then watching it all kind of fail. What I think regarding the Muppets is that Disney simply currently uses them as mascots. I feel like just in this current day and age, they're simply used as mascots for themselves and also just for Disney. And I feel like that's one of the biggest problems. The other biggest problem is they just don't let Muppet productions stick around for long enough. There hasn't been a movie in 10 years, and they haven't let any Muppet project last longer than one season. It's clear they want to do something with the property and they understand its potential, but they don't give them a chance. That's my opinion on it. But Mickey Mouse is a mascot, and he's in many things these days. The Muppets, you'd be lucky to get one thing from them yearly. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that, but for a very long time, Mickey wasn't in anything. Mickey was, for decades, just a mascot. And more recently, they've kind of revitalized him with the current Mickey Mouse shorts, which are great, and obviously stuff like a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and the 80 gazillion spin-offs that's had. That's why they bought up a ton of franchises. It helped make the 2010s the most profitable decade in the company's history. Yeah. And now the 2020s they're doing terrible because of a lot of very bad decisions. And I could spend this entire stream ranting about the bad choices they've been making in all of their divisions. I don't want to here. But I mean, it's safe to say the Muppets are not as popular as they used to be. But I don't think that's ever a death sentence. You know, it's not. That's not a death sentence. The thing with the Muppets is that it's an evergreen franchise. Even when they're not doing anything currently, we all still know the Muppets. The world still knows and loves the Muppets. And that is why I think that's why Disney treats them as they do currently. I think that's why. Because they know that even if they do nothing with the Muppets, they'll be just fine. Even if they just treat them as mascots, they'll do just fine. Because people know the Muppets and they love the Muppets. They don't even have to put in effort. You know them. They got too big for their britches. Disney, in the past few years, certainly. 2020 is struggling for Disney because they've relied so much on franchises as a crutch, but the public is moving on, plus the struggles of COVID, streaming, divergent media options, etc. Yeah, I think oversaturation is what killed the Marvel machine. I don't think it's the public moving on, because you see everyone being excited for, like, Deadpool and stuff, right? Which, in my opinion, doesn't really count, because that's not an MCU property. People will quickly point fingers to superhero fatigue, but it's not necessarily that, because when there's a good superhero movie, people show up. I think a lot of it comes to lack of quality and just oversaturation. And that's something that Disney themselves have acknowledged. Bob Iger just last week said they're cutting the amount of stuff Marvel makes in half, and I think that's very much the correct choice to make right now. What Muppet would you want to have a spin-off movie or series? See, I think something the Muppets Mayhem did really, really well is not incorporate the other Muppets. I honestly really loved that about it, which I didn't expect. But I watched it and I thought, you know what, maybe that's what they need right now. I think a spin-off starring Gonzo would work really well. We have a lot of Gonzo-centric properties. I think if you pair up Gonzo and Rizzo, if you ever find a new puppeteer for Rizzo, you pair up Gonzo and Pepe. I'd say Pepe for a spin-off, but I think Pepe works best as a side character. He may be the sort of deal where if you put him as the lead, it just wouldn't be as funny. But I feel like if there's a bad Muppet production these days, Pepe to me is always a saving grace. Muppets from Space, yeah. I don't really. Is that really a spinoff? I mean, look, I'm in the camp. Yeah, I need to rewatch Muppets from Space. Muppets from Space is one of the only ones that's not on Disney Plus. I remember being so disappointed when I first saw Muppets from Space because it's not a musical. The best thing, in my opinion, about Muppets from Space is the fact that the Muppets all live in this one giant house together. And I thought that was so cool as a kid. I thought that was so cool. I feel like another really awkward part about the Muppets right now is the Matt Vogel Kermit situation because he's not a very well received Kermit puppeteer, right? And I feel like they kind of know deep down that he might not be the best option for Kermit. So I feel like now they're just using Kermit as little as possible in actual Muppet productions, other than press things where it's typically like just him. If you look at recent Muppet productions, Kermit's inclusion has been very, very minimal, other than just general press stuff. They've been in such an awkward situation since kicking out Steve Whitmire, and you have characters that so awkwardly shuffle to new performers to the point where it's been what 8 years now, and we still haven't found a new Rizzo. And the most recent Muppet Show doesn't include any characters other than the band, and Statler and Waldorf have a very brief cameo. And I love that show. I genuinely really did. I think it was so funny, honestly. It somehow avoided being cringy despite, like, being ingrained in modern culture. I genuinely adore that show. What was one that has the best villains? Yeah, definitely the most memorable by far. I wanted to do a big video on the 10th anniversary of Muppets Most Wanted, but I scrapped it just because I did not have the time to. You know, I can't think of another time Disney's sold off one of their properties, even if they're not using it. If Disney has something, they're going to stick to it forever. Yeah, I know Kevin Clash has done some stuff for Henson Alternative. He also said that he never wants Clifford to not wear the sunglasses again. It was great to see a lot of the Muppets Tonight characters return for Muppets Haunted Mansion. Um, Even if you give Clifford a silent cameo, you know, I genuinely love Muppets Tonight. Is honestly one of my favorite Muppet things ever, and just going around for a decade having having them act like those characters never existed except for Pepe was really disappointing to me. I absolutely flipped when Johnny Fiamma came back. I love Johnny Fiamma with all my heart. On the topic of the Muppet House from Muppets from Space, how would you feel about living in a big house with over 40 other people? Yeah, there's one scene at the beginning where they're all like lined up outside of the bathroom. Seems like a disaster. Seems like they'll need a bigger house. Possibly selling off ABC, that's interesting. See, Disney's hurting right now. And when Disney's hurting, they make really rash decisions. Sometimes they make really creatively bankrupt decisions. Live action Lion King prequel, cough cough. And sometimes they just, you know, when Disney's desperate, they make weird choices. Live action Moana, cough cough. They're in such an interesting place. And again, I could go the whole stream just talking about the strange state of Disney as a company right now. It's very interesting. They've had slumps before, like in the 2000s, But modern Disney having a slump is so fascinating to me because there are so many different areas of the company. And all of them are failing. Maybe the parks are fine. Every division of Disney is in a really strange place. The Muppets don't have much to do with that at all, but so. Still wish the Muppet movie ride idea went through. Muppet Dark Ride is such a no-brainer. Yeah, it would be outdated now because the actual great movie ride is closed, but I want to do some more Disney Parks videos, but I feel like all the Muppet Disney Park stuff has been covered really well in other videos, so I'm not sure if I will. I mean, I'm sure people would still watch it if I talked about it, but still, I feel like it's been covered so thoroughly by other channels, I don't really have much new stuff to add. Disney needs to reinvest in the gaming market. That's the only division that hasn't fallen nowadays. That's a really interesting viewpoint. That's not really something I've thought about, but yeah, a lot of games from all divisions have been doing well, with the exception of like the Avengers game, which crashed and burned and was a live service. But I think they did reinvest in the gaming market. I think they may have been thinking exactly what you were thinking, if you've heard of just how much money they just put in with a partnership with Epic Games. I think they may have realized that. The Star Wars gaming scene is very rocky, and they keep canceling things, unfortunately. But the games that have come out have done very well. Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor are two beautifully well-made games, and there's a third one on the way. But every other Star Wars game gets scrapped. It feels like there are so many Marvel video games in the works right now. Let's see. I know there's an Iron Man game, there's a Black Panther game, there's a Black Panther and Captain America game, then they just announced a Blade game, which seems pretty cool, and then over with Insomniac, who did the Spider-Man games. I don't know if those count as Disney, because I think that might be more of a Sony thing, but they're doing a Wolverine game, and then it'll leak that they're doing an X-Men game eventually. So, I mean, that division's doing just fine. Disney doesn't have a devoted game publishing company anymore. They simply license their IPs out to developers these days. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. They closed down with Infinity, right? The Disney gaming division. Or maybe they closed down with the Cars 3 game, but it was around there. Forget acquired properties, focus on original properties and new ideas. Yeah, see, that's what I want too. I was talking with my mom the other day, and we were talking about movies coming out this year, and she and I were there for like 10 minutes trying to think of any popular movie this year that isn't a sequel or prequel or spin-off or connected to a pre-existing franchise or a remake. And typically, like that's how it is every year, right? But this year, we couldn't think of one like popular movie coming out that isn't tied to something. Muppet Smash Bros. Game would be amazing. I think Disney needs to make a Smash Bros. Counterpart. I think Multiverses finally launches this week, right? Then you had 2 Nickelodeon platform fighters. The fact that Disney hasn't done like a platform fighter, I'm thinking do a Disney platform fighter in sort of the style of Infinity, like with the Disney Infinity art style. I think that is such an untapped gold mine, and you combine all of the properties that Disney owns. Long story short, I want a video game where Iron Man can kill Gonzo, okay? Thank you. I want Lightning McQueen to run over the Swedish Chef. Have you played any Muppet games? I was an avid My Muppet Show player back when it was a thing, man. My friends and I all had My Muppet Show. I don't think I've ever played any Muppet console games, but I devotedly played a My Muppet Show back on my old iPod. And if I could re-download it, I would do a video on it. I meant to do a video on it right when I started my channel. I also played the Muppets Tap Tap game for a little bit. which was like a weird like beat game. I've considered doing a video on that too. Yeah, I absolutely adore Disney Infinity. I own all three versions and almost every figure ever made, and I really hope they do something with the property. I wouldn't say underrated, but it's so amazing, and I love it so much, and I wish that the other editions had gone through. And like you said, a version without figures would be great. It recently leaked that like somebody at Disney has been doing some Infinity adjacent concept art. Perhaps a remaster is in the works. And as long as that remaster doesn't have the Toys to Life aspect, I think that would be perfect. Like how the PC version of Infinity gave you all the characters from the boot. I think a Disney crossover video game with everything they own, like the fact that they haven't done it. There was supposed to be a Disney Lego game a year or two ago and it got scrapped, and I was so annoyed because that was going to be like Infinity, but it was a Lego game, so there would be like 500 characters. And that got canceled alongside, I think, a Guardians of the Galaxy Lego game, and I want to say another Lego Batman or Harry Potter or something like that got canned, and I was so disappointed. Michael Giacchino did the Muppet Monster Adventure score. That's amazing. That's awesome. Where'd you get that tambourine? This is a Dr. Teeth the Muppet sound tambourine from either the late 70s, early 80s. My aunt actually had it as a kid, and I got it from her. It's a long time ago. Well, there is a new Tron movie in the works. I never got into Tron, but I want to check out the new Tron because Cameron Monaghan's in it, and he played Cal in the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor games, the Star Wars games. And I'd be more excited if Jared Leto weren't involved. Is it a Zaslav thing? Is it a Warner Brothers thing? I don't know. Because, I mean, one of those was Disney. It's mainly GBA Muppet Show game and the Little Big Planet level pack. Yeah, I looked into I never played Little Big Planet, although I heard the tragedy of them, like, shutting down all the servers recently, which absolutely sucks. Very, very annoying. But yeah, I looked into the Muppet level pack recently. Saw Tron 2 in theaters. Yeah, I've heard good things about Tron 2. I never saw the original. I haven't heard the best things about the original, but I feel like it's one of those things where even if you don't know it, the iconography is so iconic, you know it. Oh, so Giacchino did, yeah. See, that was, like, early 2000s Michael Giacchino was before he made it really big. He did every episode of Lost back in the day, which is crazy. I want to do a video about Lost. I love Lost. They did a whole bunch of Muppet cross-promotions for some reason, including with the Muppets Wizard of Oz, because Lost aired on ABC. It might be something worth looking into, but I don't know if the audience is there. Least favorite Muppet movie? The Kermit Swamp Years. I don't even, like, count that as a Muppet movie. I don't even count that. Does that even count? That seems like too easy of an answer. Yeah, I think it's too easy to say Kermit Swamp Years. I watched it once, maybe 10 years ago. I barely remember it. If there's a Muppet canon, I like to think Kermit Swamp Years isn't canon. Have you met a Muppet puppeteer? I have, yes. I met Noel McNeil at a convention around 2014. He played Bear in Bear in the Big Blue House, and he's done a lot of other work for the Muppets. I puppeteered a Muppet fish for him for a thing he was doing, and I bought a copy of his book, which was a kid's book about how to make puppets. I'll be right back in a second, guys. I gotta go check something real quick. Those Muppet sing-along videos. Yeah, I think, yeah. Like the Kermit Kokomo one. that gets stuck in my head far too often. I actually see the thing that bothers people when I tell them is I actually have never seen Bear in the Big Blue House, but I met the guy that played Bear. At the time, I had not seen any of it. It was a little before my time. Just by like 2 or 3 years, I think. I think I had a Bear in the Big Blue House book as a kid. But mad respect to Noel McNeil. Definitely one of the most underrated Muppet performers. Leslie Carrera Rudolph was there as well. I didn't meet her, but she was also at the convention. I don't think we knew. My family was not aware. We just saw that Noel McNeil was there. We didn't know she was there too. So I didn't like meet her, but I was in the same room as her and directly next to her. Yeah, I know Bear was featured in some sort of like Disney. He hosted a Disney Junior, I guess back then Playhouse Disney, live show at the parks. Yeah. There was also a Bear in the Big Blue House like world tour show they did at one point. Yeah, she did. She did sing at that convention in the voice of a child, but she did sing. I mean, I don't think I could name a Muppeteer with a bad voice. I talked about Joey Mazzarino earlier, who played Murray. I don't like the voice he used for a lot of his characters, but I can't say he was bad. You know, there's no one out there that I can say is bad. There are some performances I haven't liked, but if there's one thing they never miss, it's finding talented people. It was also very cool to see her return to non-Sesame Street material with Penny Waxman and the Muppets Mayhem. She hasn't done something for the non-Sesame Street Muppets in a very long time. I think not since Muppets Tonight, where she was Spamela. The greatest character. The one that I feel I have to censor if I ever show her in a video. Yeah, see, she brought Lolly with her to that convention. Yeah. Actually, that was the puppet in question. Thank you. So, I've been in the same room as that. I don't know. I'm kind of lame. That's the like biggest celebrity I've ever met was Noel McNeil. As great as he is, um, that's I think the biggest name I've met. I should go to more conventions. Never do a Muppet history on a character for Muppet Babies. My original first video, before I just settled on one on Rolf, was actually going to be like a brief history of every character to appear in Muppet Babies as a baby. I definitely like to cover Skeeter before. I feel like I've had some people say like, hey, would you not cover Skeeter since she's animated? But Skeeter's very high up on my list of characters I want to talk about. When I take a break from Sesame Street deep dives and do a regular Muppet, Skeeter's up there. It's been a little hard currently to find the right balance between Muppet content and Sesame Street content, but why not cover Nanny? See, that's not a bad one. Maybe we'll finally discover her face. I have another Muppet video in the works. I want to do a video on the Muppets Tonight episode where Bobo kills Arsenio Hall and then has to find a new guest star. That episode's so weird. I made a joke about it before in my Pigs in Space. Or no, sorry, I made it in the what is it? The Veterinarian's Hospital video. Yeah, I think they did do a Skeeter murder mystery. You're right. I don't think I've seen Disney Dan's Muppet videos, but I've watched him for years. I love his stuff. Very cool to see the History Channel picked him up as a guest for their Disney series they're currently doing. Every Muppet Babies episode ever used to be ripped to YouTube about 10 years back. I watched them all around 2014, 2013. Yeah, I want to talk about the Arsenio Hall episode. I have a very long list of videos I want to do. The problem is doing them. Right, obviously this channel's at a very inconsistent upload schedule, but I'm off of school now, so the goal when I started the Cookie Monster video was to begin doing new videos every 2 weeks. But then I had to start studying for finals. So, a big goal for me for this summer is to just more frequently do content here. Maybe I'll do it weekly. I may very well try weekly. I think bi-weekly is going to be the way to go for the channel in the future. We'll just have to see. The thing with this channel is, again, it's not my main channel, and these videos take a very long time to make. That's why I did the Sweetums news video the other day, which didn't do all that well, which I expected. But just to make sure I have content on this channel, you know. I'm looking for ways to make videos that don't take as long to make, that I could release between bigger videos, like deep dives or retrospectives or whatever else it may be. And two planned series I have are episode spotlights, which I really want to do, just talking about specific episodes. And I also have a series that I want to do called Muppet Family Tree, where I go over all the relatives of certain characters, because a lot of Muppets have very interesting relative character histories. I think the first episode was going to be on Bert, and all like the funny Bert relatives we've seen. Something like that. Bart, Brad, Bertha, Bert's mother. I think a big part of Muppet Babies is probably the fact that it used an absolute ton of footage from other properties. That's probably a modern licensing nightmare for them. one of the big gimmicks of Muppet Babies was that they would always show footage from other things. Yeah, so like I said earlier, I think the next deep dive is going to be on Telly, and the next regular video is probably going to be about the Sesame Street episode where Telly beats up a penguin and goes to jail. I love it too much to not talk about it. But one thing I really do want to do is I already promised at this point a video on the online Pigs in Space continuation that only ran for 2 episodes and had a really interesting story behind why they didn't make more, and that was around 2016 or so. I think that's the next Muppet history lesson I'll do because I kind of promised I would. And then that finally wraps up sort of the mini-series I've been doing in that series with like revivals of classic Muppet Show sketches.